least a little bit of backend, and vice versa. Knowing the basics of both will help you know if you like front-end or back-end web development better. Sound good? Let's dig deeper into the roadmap. Before you get into actual coding, you'll need to understand some general concepts as you start your journey into web development. How websites work, the difference between front-end and back-end, and using a code editor. All websites at their most basic are just a bunch of files that are stored on a computer called a server. This server is connected to the internet. You can then load that website through a browser like Chrome, Firefox, or Safari on your computer or on your phone. Your browser is also called the client in this situation. So every time you're on the internet, you, the client, are loading data from the server, as well as submitting data back to the server. This back and forth between the client and the server is the basis of the internet. Web developer roles typically fall into three categories: front-end, back-end, and full stack. The terms front-end, back-end, and full stack web developer describe what part of the client-server relationship that you're working with. Front-end means that you're dealing mainly with the client side. It's called the front-end because it's what you can see in the browser. Conversely, the back-end is the part of the website that you can't really see, but it handles a lot of the logic and functionality that is necessary for everything to work. One way you can think about this is that front-end web development is like the front of house part of a restaurant. It's a section where customers come to see and experience the restaurant, the interior decor, seating, and of course, eating the food. On the other hand, back-end web development is like the back of house part of the restaurant. It's where deliveries and inventory are managed, and the process to create the food all happens. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that the customers won't see, but they will experience and hopefully enjoy the end product, a delicious meal. Fun illustrations aside, both front-end and back-end web development serve different but very important functions. When you build a website, the most essential tool that you'll use is your code editor, or IDE, Integrated Development Environment. This tool allows you to write the markup and code that will make up the website. There are quite a few good options out there, but currently the most popular code editor is VS Code. VS Code is a more lightweight version of Visual Studio, Microsoft's main IDE. It's fast, free, easy to use, and you can customize it with themes and extensions. Other code editors are Sublime Text, Atom, and Vim. If you're just getting started though, I'd recommend checking out VS Code, which you can download from their website. Now that we've covered some of the broader concepts of what web development is, let's get into more of the details, starting with the front end. The front end of a website is made up of three types of files: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These files are loaded in the browser on the client side. HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language, is the foundation of all websites. It's the main file type that is loaded in your browser when you look at a website. The HTML file contains all the content on the page, and it uses tags to denote different types of content. For example, you can use tags to create headline titles, paragraphs, bulleted lists, images, and so on. HTML tags by themselves do have some styles attached, but they're pretty basic, kind of like what you would see in a Word document.
So kato ang kato ang tawag ana web dev. So karon kay ang i-discuss nako is HTML, CSS, and gamay na JavaScript. So kung gusto mo masabay, ato lang ina link din dito sa first commit. So subayan nato W3 schools. Yung lang ako is i-copy lang ako na. Kopyaon lang ni. Anak HTML. So ay kabalo ba mo tanan ng HTML? O dili? Sige, so ito atong first commit. So next ang next commit na ako kay add ko og header elements. So kung i-check nato ni ang naitabo is nabutang na header na tag, then abi mga meta chuchu, butang pud kog icon, butang po yung emoji. Isa na to ni. So, kani, kailangan ni, pagkuhan, para ingnan nimo sa browser ng HTML5, imong i-load. Pero mo-work, magyapon siya, maski wala. So, ambot nga no, kailangan siya, pero butang lang kay wala mo pimawala sa imo. Sunod kay ang language sa website. So, para mo gawas tong translator, change lang nimo into kuan Unicode. I zoom in. Then, diba? Then, next is charset, which is unsa pag-interpret sa imong browser. So, by default, UTF-8 na ni siya. So, i-refresh mo na. Wala yung may tabo. Pero once i-change mo ni into, let's say, ASCII, dili mo load ang akong kuan emojis. Kay ang ASCII has gamay lang na, gamay lang na characters. While ang UTF-8, 1 million siguro. 1 million. Next is viewport for responsiveness. So, W3 viewport. So, mga nang viewport, dili ko switoan eh. Then, description is description sa imong site. Kaning duha is for SEO, I think. Para makita ni sa imuhang mga kuan. Tawagan. Sa mga spiders. So, SEO spiders. Ano sila? Kani sila. Kung naka-follow ka, mas pwede sila mo sulod if na-deploy na yung site. Hindi nila sudlon sa isahon, i-index nila. Aron, ang imong site, bubutang diri sa 1 to 10. So, ana po sila na ang content na description kay panagsagi na kana siya diri, pero ambot lang. Wala pa po ko try. So, kato lang sa meta. Then sa link is, as usual, link lang ni sa site. So, karon is, ang akong source is sa internet. Ang uban is local. So, what if wala kay internet connection? So, i-offline ako. I-refresh ako eh. Dili mag-load ang kuan, ang icon. Okay? Then, ito lang man ang nag-change. So, kung gusto ninyo na dili man din dapat i-memorize. So, sa VS Code na ay kuan, emmet. So, pili lang mo HTML5, then i-tab ninyo. Wala ni mo gawas. Same ani. Okay? Questions? Wala no? Wala yun ta. Sunod kay sunod na ako gi-commit kay nag-add kog elements and style. So, ang itsura ni ron kanina CSS gikan sa W3 gyapon. Okay lang. Then, wala siya CSS. Ano ba akong gi-commit niya? Then, nag-add po kog elements na marquee and iframe. Okay? Then, ang CSS is, kung mag-style ka, natin ginatawag na selector, natin ginatawag na volume siguro ni, or attribute. Basta kung sa imong gustong i-edit sa selector. So, kanina selector is element. Ang specificity niya is 001. Then, so, ang cascade, isa sa akong discuss is, what if twice ko mag-call og H1, then ang isa is red. So, ang cascade is if pantay mo og specificity, ang ang madaog para sa iyaha is katong pula. Okay? Katong pula. Specificity ni timan ini kay sa pag mag-develop mo panag sa matingala mo dili nag-reflect ang inyong edits ba tahay ang CSS ninyo kay 200 lines kamay pa na. So dili ka nag-change, gusto niyo mo block, then dapat mo block na siya diri tingala ka nga ng dili man block kay naa sa pinakatumoy na nagbutang na dev na red. So okay, mao to ang cascade. Then kato lang man, ingon lang mo ako na may question. Ang lang mo. Speak lang mo. Na ay question. So, next commit na ta mga choy. Discards. Next commit na ko is specificity. Okay. So, kitaan mo, no? So place na ako niya sa itsura. So, black. So, ang change na ko is nagdagdag og other CSS na selectors. So, ang makitaan po din mo sa wild kay gani. Kuan po din siya na selector. Problematic po din siya na selector kay wildcard selector ni siya. So, tanang element sa imong HTML na naay font style na attribute is mahimong ma-italic. So, ang paragraph and ang marquee and H1 ma-italic. So, ang good thing is ang specificity niya is 0. So, paspas lang na siya ma-override gamit ang kani. Let's say ang H1 na siya font style na normal. So, siya lang ang na normal. Sila tanan italicized. So, lisod din siya gamiton kung dako kag website. Dagan kag pages. Kay check pa nimo kinsa ba yung maapektuhan, kinsa dili maapektuhan. Okay? Then dili na masugod ang classes. So, kung maghimang mo class, dapat na i-dot. That's Z. So, kung maghimang mo class, dot, then ang name. So, wala spaces, dash lang, or underscore. Then, kung mag-call mo og class, attribute base siya sa HTML element. So, class, call na ako si Z. Then, pag i-refresh na to red siya. Okay. Ang class is greater than an element. So, 001 is greater than 010. So, ang imagine na lang is class is 10 points, elements 1 point, wildcard selector as there is 0 points. So, mao nang gist sa specificity. Then, pwede pud ka mag-multiple classes. Muna ginaan ni. Class 2. Class 1, class 2. So, ang problema ani is same sila gina-edit background color. So, ang madaog diri, if equal imong specificity, ang mag-tiebreaker ana is ang cascade. Oops, i-comment din ako. Ang cascade. So, pantay man imong specificity. So, kinsay ulahi giingon, gi-instantiate, siya ang madaog. So, silver ang madaog. Regardless of the position. So, okay. Class 2, class 1 pa na. Silver yapon madaog. Siya ang pinakaulahi. Okay. Okay. Then, comment na to niya. Napod tay, kuan pud ka. Tawag na. Maka-combine pud tag class. So, pag mag-combine ka class, pilit lang nimo ang dot. Ayaw pag space. Kay lahi pud na siya na combinator. Okay? So, karon class 2, class 1, dapat orange ni. Pero, ang kuan na blue kasi mas specific ang class 1 and class 2. Okay? So, pag mag-combine mo class, mudagdag ang inyong specificity. So, kani 0 to 0. Kani 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. So, kung daghan mo classes, which dili pud kaayo healthy, combine mo daga classes. So, 0, 10 ang inyong specificity. Okay? Then, comment na sad ta. Pwede po din mo mag-combine og classes with an element. So, ang specificity niya ron is 0 to 1 versus 0 to 0. So, 20 points versus 21 points. So, is blue. What? Yellow day. Wala na save. Oh, is yellow. Okay lang. Then, if dili jud makaya sa class, design by class, pwede mo mag-style by ID. So siya, ang points niya is 100, so murag 100 points niya siya. So once na-ID inyong element, then gi-style ninyo, bahala nagdagan pa nag-classes nag-combine. ID gapon madaog. So kani, Burleywood, Brown, then naapay mas kusog aning ID, which is inline style, which is ang favorite sa tanan. Then, kani once naka-ingon ka ginani, wala na ning ID. Pildi na niya ang ID. Then, ang makitaan po nimo sa ubang CSS is kaning important. Mga po ang pinaka-kusog sa tanang kusog. So once gigamit ako ning weak class, kita ka ang kuan niya is 10 points lang siya. Ang kalaban niya is 100 points ang ID. Kalaban po niya inline style. Ikabo, gold gyapon ang kuan. Gawas. Kay ang important, ang pinakakusog sa tanang sa specificity na food chain. Okay? So, kung gusto ninyo makabalo sa food chain, ito na madre. Ano yung food chain? So, kani, pinakahinay. Kani, ang ID, shark, 100 points. Kapil din niyang classes. Pero na po yung inline style na barko. Pero na po ni, important. So, para ang mga usual CSS kina-adjust ni. Then, apa ni sila yung mga pseudo class, Yan ako i-discuss. So, katulang tanan sa commit na cascade and specificity. Naay questions. Okay, so wala. So, next. Dirita sa flex box. CSS gapa niya. So, nata diri sa flex box. Mo yung pinaka lisod for me. Flex box. So, tagoon sa natin kay mga naning solution. Comment sa natin. So, ang itura sa website karon from this, nahimong inani. Then, natin nadagdag na elements to check our element. Nanay div na content. And then, ang div na ay anak. Header, main, aside left, aside right, footer. So, ang gusto nako na format is kuan, responsive through mobile and desktop. So, W3 gyapon ta. Responsive So, muna itong i-achieve. Kanya itong i-achieve using Flexbox. So, first, explain sa akin at media. So, ang at media is once ma-reach nimo ang specific na width sa screen, mo throw na ni na CSS. So, let's try sa body. Silver. So, refresh na to ni. Silver siya. Pag once mag 768, silver na siya. Silver. Then, once mag 767, itong CSS before na body, which is light blue. So, mao nang nag-comment ko diri na for bigger screens, kani ang CSS. Then, for mobile screens, kaning light blue. Okay. Gets ba? Then, next, kay gusto na ko yun, ani. Ang header diri, footer diri, left diri, right diri, main content diri. So, unsaon man na siya. So, using Flexbox, atay ko diri. So, first kay ang content, na may content dira na class, imo na to na siya, o imo na to siya flex. So, check na to. Kaniyang before, yung after. So, dito na nag-tab. So, kani. Kung sa difference, murag sok sila sa isa ka row. So, pag i-check po na mo sa elements, sok na sila tanan sa div. Row na sila tanan. Sa, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Sok na sila sa div. Kay, unang kuan sa unang property sa CSS na Flexbox. So, ang container na ako is yung violet. So, ang violet in this instance is yung div class content. Then, ang oranges, which is the items, is kaning 5. Header, main, side, left. Right. Then, by default, naka-row siya. So, naka-row ang arrangement. Then, dili siya i-wrap. All flex items, all orange items will be on one line. So, pangit yung nag-uot sila. So, dili natin sila pag-uot. Mag-flex wrap ta. Wrap. So, dili sa content. Wrap and wrap. So, kana ang before. View na to ni Ron. Tada. How's different? Tada. Na-row ang header. Na-row ang main. Ang side, footer, nag-share sa isa ka row. So, ang row, ang footer di ay, and ang header, gusto na to i-full kuha nila ang tibuok row. So, we do that by header, footer, is 100% sure na. So karon, header nimo na siya sa row 1. Footer nimo na siya sa ulay. So, ox na ta. Hindi na. Then, ang next kay ang pag-arrange na lang sa items. Na ang left side diri, content diri, right side diri. So, to do that, kay saan to niya? That left sidebar. Ay, na-add ay, I-explain sa din ako, na-add ay properties ang items. Once ang imong papa or imong container kay flex, ikaw na anak niya na direkta kay flex item na ka. So, kaniyang properties ng mga anak, mga properties ng mga parents. Okay? So, check na tong order. Order is, kana tong chronological order kung asa mo. container. So karon ang atoa is 1, 2, 3. So ang left sidebar order na to is 1. Tama ba? Order is 1. Ang content, so tag lang tapag style. Order is 1. Then ang right sidebar order is 1. So kaniyang before na after. So unsay naglahi. Nisaka ang kuan. Ay, ano 1 1 1 eh. 1 2 3. Na. So karon okay na ta. Pero by default ang mga tawag ani ang mga children na walay order, ang header and ang footer wala man na sila order. By default ma-push sila sa taas. So, ang problema lang nato isang footer. Kaya matay problema ni sa taas lang na siya. So, mao na ay sa footer nagbutang ko og order for. Siya diri sa ilang. Mao na ang kuan sa mga children. Order chuchun. Okay. So, last is kulang na lang is i-expand nato ni. Ang left side mo dako, ang right side mo dako. Kay ang imong main paragraph nimo dalo sa width. Ang iframe nimo okay lang. Ang marquee pod dalo sa width. Kuha na tibok width sa screen. So to do that, we have flex grow or ang ginagamit lang sa mismo is flex. So pag magamit ka og flex, pwede nimo i-control ang kadako sa children. So natay duha ka children left side, main, and right side bar. So gusto na ako left side kani. Ay, try sa ato ng 1 1 1 1. Flex. So ganito. Flex. Flex 1. Flex 1. Flex 1. So kani ang before. Ato ni. Pag nagbutang kog flex 1, okay na. Medyo okay na itong kuhan. So gusto mo na ako na mas dako ang tunga. So mo na lang siya ito. So pag 2 ni, twice the size na siya. Flex 1. Okay. Then, problema dali. Problema na ako is gusto na ako tunga ning kuhan. Gusto na ako tunga ning iframe. And kuha niya ang tibok width sa page. So, ang main, hataga na to minimum height. 100 VH. And VH is viewport height. So, kana. Then, kung gusto na to, ani mo kuan, tawagan na. Mo tunga ang iyang children, himo na to siyang flex box na sad. So, flex na sad ka. Children na ka, container pa ka. Then, kana. So, di ba by default, naka-row ang mga flex. So, naka-no wrap ang flex, then naka-row. Maong naka-row na sila. So, magkuan lang ta direction. Direction. Volume. Refresh. Tada. And gusto na ko sa tunga sila. So, magkuan ko. Mag-justify content ko. So, for rows, inani inyong pananaw. For columns, kay ihiwi lang ninyo inyong ulo. So, space around ato ang justify content. Space around. Then, kani ang before. Kani ang after. So, naana siya spaces. Space around diri. Space around the iframe. Space around the marquee. Okay. Then, so anong gi-change? Yun ni. Yan. Yan. Okay. Pati sa puan ko dahil. Kani gusto na ako magtungaan ng left side and right side. So, himo na po na ako sila flex. So, pwede, ang children, pwede mahimong container sa other flex. So, anak-anakay lang ni siya, guys. Okay? So, paanakan na to ang left side door. So, pag magkama ka, meaning, ang same na siya as, yan, same lang na sila. So, para makas-save ka og linya, kama na lang yun. Okay? So, dapat nasa tunga na lang sila. So, okay, I'm happy with that. So, ang last day ay is ang mobile. Mobile na ang problema. So, pag-check na itong responsiveness, wala siya. So, once mag-mobile siya, ang iframe, dili mo cooperate. Kay, dili man siya flex pag nasa mobile na CSS. So, gusto na ito magamay siya. Gusto na ito magamay. Main gap na itong kuhanon. Edit. Display flex ang natin siya. So, I think that alone, okay na. Pero, ang default man ng display flex is row. So, column na set natin siya. Tada! So, responsive na yung kuhan from desktop to mobile. Okay. Except ani header. So, ako na naghihilaptan. So, na-question. Google with me ba ni? Kuan na lang man ata ang kuan. Flexbox is hard. So, pamanay na ko. Next is separate na ako. Eh. Yan na. Okay na ni? Sure ba? Kanang tinood na pangutana. Basig paspas kay ko. May pangutana, guys. Mga do that. This beautiful sight. So, murag I take. So, wala na, no? Discord na ako ni. So, sa last commit na ta, second to the last day. Ang gihimo na ako dere is nagibutan ko image and kato. And gi-separate na nako ang styles into another file. Kay gubot na kaayo pag mag-style pa ka diri, taas na ka ito. Ang tawag ana is kuan, separation of concern. So ayaw i-sabay ang HTML ug CSS sa isa ka file. Okay? So kung mag-link mo, link lang mo, tab mo, href .style.css. Kung na siya sa lahi na folder, style.css. Okay. And ang style.css, ana lang ito rana. Okay. So, gamay pa kay ni siya. So, ang normal na CSS kay normal na linya sa mga CSS kay maabot og normal na linya sa mga CSS maabot og 8K ka pin. So, maoning importante na kabalo mo sa cascade, kabalo mo sa specificity, kay maski pila ka oras mo mag-debug, hindi mo kabalo magbasag CSS. Saya kayo, mukha nang alkanse kayo mo. Okay. Morning bootstrap ha. Questions? Questions, my dudes. Pala yun ta. Ay! Ganito eh. Play pa rin ako CSS.
CSS or cascading style sheets lets you style that HTML content so it looks nice and clean. Colors, some fonts, and lay out the elements of your website however you want them to look. You can even create animations and shapes with CSS. There's a lot of depth to CSS, and sometimes people tend to gloss over it so they can move on to things like JavaScript.
So, katong CSS. So, mas how din siya mag-explain sa ko. At ako alam mo ha, stick lang ako na pangutaan na. So, pamanay na jud ko guys. Yes. JavaScript, ang last. Check out. Tada. Itabo. May button. So, yan ang button dito guys. So, ang pinaka-last akong presentation is ang JavaScript. Ikantod ni sa W3. So, naa siya gawa sa body. So, pag-refresh. Ang button diri. Okay. Then, kung saan ang JavaScript programming language ni, hindi na ako mag-tudlo og JavaScript lisod. So, normally, na script na tag, then dila ka magbutang og imong mga JavaScript codes or functions. So, napoy ginatawag na scope. Tayo mag-let x ko diri. Let size be 20. So, i-refresh na ko ni. Ako sa DevTools. Ano niya? Console. Pag mag-clear mo then nagbutang man ko global variable diri na size. So, ma-instantiate na siya diri. Size equals 20, size plus plus. Sorry. Size plus 1. Okay. So, na. Then, ang goal na lang nako diri is get element by ipadako na ko ang font ani. So, naay function na get element by ID. So, if kato ang ID, which is isa lang magid dapat ang owner sa ID, mo tayo makuha. Okay, so kahay saka na ko ni kuha na akong x. Ang x na nakuha na ko na element is ang p. Paragraph x. Okay, then na siya the x.style. Kanitaas kayo ni, hindi na ibasa ha. And then mo i-edit yung font size. X.style. Font size equals ang px diri kay pixels sa CSS. Ano na pixels? So, string yung gina-accept. So, gusto mo 100 px. Save mo ito. Check. So, ni-reflect ba siya? Ni-reflect siya diri. So, let's say 20 ang yung normal. 20 na. Okay. Questions? Then, padayon na sa atong function. Padayon na function diri. Gusto na ako mo-increment kada click. So, gamit na ako ni sa gawas. Size equal size plus 1. Then, string man size plus px. I think that's it for the code. So, pag-view na to ni siya guys. Tada! Naka-website. Ako lang na sa akong JavaScript. So, gamay lang din akong git-tackle sa JavaScript. Kaya, programming naman dyan Dili na ni siya normal na language, no? Pina CS, HTML, CSS. Okay? So, kato lang guys. And ma-visit din ninyo ang site. Diri. Tada! Na live ni na site. Then, kung gusto niyo mabasa sa akong gipangyaw-yaw na diri, ang mga resources sa ako, ay, dili additional readings ang dili. So, ang gidiscuss ng nako is ang HTML, gamay, CSS, gamay, JavaScript, gamay. So, daghan pa ni siya klase. Super daghan pa ni siya. And kato lang. May questions. Kanang mag-mic be. Man akong website.
Nga ako'y pangutanaya.
Okay.
Nganong magtuon pa man mi og HTML CSS kung pwede mi maggamit og kanang Wix?
Wix. Kanang Shopify. Ano
Akatong Wix na advertisement.
Wix, Squarespace, Shopify.
Yes. Sige, yes.
Kuan. Kamo, gamit ba doon ninyo? Depende. Wala man sa magigaan. Pero, para sa kuha ha, kuan. Mas gwapo gyapon pag kuan. Ikaw ang from scratch, gibuild mo from scratch itong site. Pina Facebook, Netflix, na kay mas kontrolado nimo lalo na puntahay mag-boom imong kuan. Mag-boom inyong site. Dili na panag sa dili makater ang ubang functions na gusto ninyo. Dili makater sa mga Squarespace. Ano? Ano lang na. For me lang to. Okay. So, wala na yung questions, guys.
Kuya, ano difference? May web dev pa ba yung WordPress?
Sige. Kanang WordPress kay akong pinakaunang mura lang kang nagkuan. Drag and drop. Para sa ako kay dira ako first naka-learn og web dev kay tong high school ko wala may web dev. Then sa sysdev na ay ang pinakaunang website na handle na ako is katong samahan. Then naka WordPress lang to. And si WordPress is parang ano lang talaga siya. IDE parang siya IDE kay built-in na lahat, naka-plugins na lahat. Ikaw na lang bahala mag-arrange sa users, sa asa ang unsay page ang next page ana. So nasagot na ako yung pangutana.
Yes, kuya.
Okay, so questions, guys. Yes. Na. So next presenter kay si Baji. So thank you guys.
Hello, madungog ko. Hello.
Marinig ka, kuya.
Okay.
Lumabos.
Sige. What lang ha? Okay. So, makita akong gina-present. If dili kay try ninyo i-press ninyo ang people human try ninyo i-pin akong presentation biyaan na ng tabs ano na jud ko so anyways this is part 2 of our web development webinar. So I am Joshua Gallenero. I am a junior software developer with currently June, July, August, 8 months of experience. So gikontak ako ni Hill so as to to give a talk on intro lang on the industry and how it will help us. So if interested ka in web development in general, or if interested ka in one of the possible career paths na ating course, computer engineering, then this webinar is for you. But before I start, gusto ko lang i-expound yung tanong ni Hill kanina. Why would, ang tanong niya ata is, ngano mag tuon patag web development na ingani if na mga websites like Wix. So in general, yung mga kind of websites that offer website generation and building, yung mga preset na, usually enough na siya for most businesses, enough na siya for most use cases. Pero if you really want your own custom-made website, if you want your own functionality, or kung gusto mo na, kasi yung those kinds of sites kasi, hindi niya, again, gisabi ni Zaldy kanina, hindi niya makater lahat ng functionality na gusto mo. So, web development is the perfect avenue. Kaya, even with those kinds of websites, hindi pa rin out of business ang mga web developers. They're still very much in demand. Pati, yung sa question kanina about WordPress, yes, considered pa rin siya as web development kasi basically ang WordPress, you're working with PHP, another programming language, pero you still serve mga basic files like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, nandun pa rin siya, pero back lang siya with PHP. So yes, web development pa rin siya, pero again, like gisabi ni Zaldy kanina, you're working with plugins, so medyo meron siyang drag and drop aspect to it na parang you're still medyo website builder / generator pa rin siya. Okay, so with that being said, start tayo. So ang aking talk mostly will consist of 2 parts. So mag-demo ako on, or well, since na-demo na ni Zaldy kanina, mag-review lang tayo sa front-end side, and I will talk a bit about the life as a software developer, junior software developer. So before that, in web development or in software development in general, meron yung dalawang roles. Usually, as you've read kanina or napakinggan nyo kanina sa video, merong front-end dev and back-end dev. So nandito na naman, naka-layout na siya. So front-end dev, so basically kung anong muka ng website mo or web application, lahat ng visuals, buttons, interactions with the server, that gina-handle yan ni front-end dev. So content, structure, images, files, the like, and si front-end dev. So mostly front-end devs work with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So bale, ang basically ginagawa ni front-end dev, gawa ka ng website, you design, kung anong mang ginagamit, anong makita natin, ang UI or the user interface, and then how it communicates to the backend. Ang backend naman, ito ang madalas na tinuturo sa ating curriculum sa COE. So in your future classes, if wala pa kayong naka-undergo for the lower years and for the current year, 3rd years, 4th years, yeah, for sure. So mga current 3rd years or 2nd years nakadaan na ng DBMS or database management, kay that is one of the foundation na papunta sa backend dev. Kasi yung backend dev ang nag-handle ng data, basically na website, what data comes in and out of their database, business logic, and usually ang mga backend devs, they make the database. So yung mga SQL queries, mga ORMs, basically yan ang current technology na ginagamit para mag-communicate from sa ginawa mong database to your website. Yan ginagawa ni backend dev. So as you can see, yung mga languages na meron, commonly na ginahanap pa sa industry, kay Python, Java, PHP, Node.js, and .NET. Yes, so yung ginaturo ni Sir Dex sa atin lahat, na Sir Falier, ni Ma'am Haina, yung .NET, yes, that is also a pwede rin siya magamit para maka-pursue kayo ng job as a .NET developer. Yan. And if naisip mo rin na, what if kung marunong ako both ng front-end and back-end developer? Yes, they exist. They are called full-stack developers, or gusto kong matawag sa kanila mga genius. Kasi geniuses or mga senior na yan sila. Kasi in the industry, those who know both back-end and front-end, generally matagal na sila sa kanilang discipline. Usually, for example, nag-start ka with front-end, tapos mga for 3 to 5 years, okay ka na, and then you start learning back-end. That's when you become a full-stack developer. Though it is also possible to be a full-stack developer early on in your career. The example that I can think of is yung ginapagawa sa atin. Again, is our Dex. Di ako sure for the lower years, pero yung mga current third years, di ba, meron tayong subject na data structures and algorithms. And sa DBMS din, ginapagawa tayo ng database or some data running in the background. Tapos tayo rin ginapagawa ng UI, di ba? With WPF, di ba? So that, in a sense, is full stack development kasi tayo ang gumagawa ng back-end na work, which is ang data. Tayo rin gumagawa ng front-end work, which is how the application looks. So, meron ding, hindi lang yan sila tatlo ang occupations available in our industry, in the web development industry. Meron ding tinatawag na UI designer and UX designer. So basically, si UI designer, silang madalas gumagawa sila madalas gumagawa ng mga mock-ups for the front-end developers to follow, or even for the back-end developers to see what kind of data they will send to the front-end. So yun, so sila usually gina-design, that's called a mock-up. So bale, usually ginagamit na tools kay Figma, Adobe XD, or pwede nga pwede nga Photoshop, pero ang disadvantage na ni Photoshop is you won't be able to inspect yung mga dimensions ng elements, yung mga colors na you can just easily inject in your code. So madalas din ma-mix up ang UI designer and UX designer na meaning. Usually sa aking experience in the industry, they're one of the same. I haven't experienced yet designers na wala pa akong naka-work with na UI designer na separate from a UX designer. Usually isang tao lang yan siya. Pero there are different sila discipline. So si UI designer again, siya ang nag-design sa how the website looks, kung anong i-code dapat ni front-end developer. Si UX designer naman, siya ang nag-design of the experience and the ease of use of the app. So let's say for example, meron kayong baso. It doesn't only apply sa web development, pero widely used in web development or in the tech industry. But just to give a simple analogy, so let's say for example, meron kang baso. Di ba, ang ginagamit natin ang baso to drink. Di ba? Usually, ang mga baso, wala silang handle. So, imagine na lang kayo ng dalawang baso, one with a handle and one without. Di ba, mas madaling gamitin yung may handle, yes? It may be subjective, but let's just say, for the sake of this analogy, na mas madali gamitin si baso na may handle, yes? So that is an example of good UX. Most people would say na mas prefer kayong baso with a handle, kaya mas madali siya gamitin, mas madali siya i-understand. Iyan ang purpose niya. The purpose of the handle is for the ease of use ng ating baso. So, it's the same thing as in the websites. Yan ang trabaho ni UX designer. Let's say for example sa Facebook, 'di ba? Meron tayong yung messenger na icon. Good UX siya, I would say, kasi you immediately know what it's for. Alam mo na messenger siya na icon. For years Facebook has built messenger and alam na siya ng lahat ng tao. And I would say na madali siya gamitin, it's for chat, nandiyan na siya. Bad UX would be, ano bang bad UX? I guess it's subjective, pero, well, not really. That's not a good thing to say. Kasi UX generally, my case studies dyan behind it, to support what generally is good user experience. So let's just say, for example, yung messenger icon, di ba, nasa upper right corner ng screen natin when we're in the web page. So let's say, for example, tinago natin si messenger icon in one of the buttons. Let's say, merong, di ba, parang drop-down button sa Facebook. Let's say, kita ko natin dyan. Di ba ano siya? You would agree. I think you would agree. Not all siguro. I think you would agree na bad UX siya. Kasi, ba't dyan ginalagay? Bakit from noon na plain sight, makita natin na gano'n messenger, nandun na yung icon, alam natin na yan yung chat feature, bakit tinago sa drop-down? So that's just an example of bad UX. Yes. So, pero, ang focus natin for this afternoon again, like I said, is front-end development. So, how a web page looks, yung structure, i-review ko lang since go over na ni Zaldy kanina yung HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I will introduce a framework later, just to see kung ano, just to share them experience in the industry. So, So yes, meron tayong meron tayong tatlong foundation for making web page. So, yung HTML, na show ni Zaldy kanina. So, they are the foundation or the base of the web page. So, if gagawa ka ng HTML file, the web page or your browser will be able to recognize it right away. Ang CSS, basically, that gives life and color to your web page. So, yan nagpapaganda, mas nice to look at. And JavaScript works with the HTML code just to give more interaction, dynamic interaction, most of the functions that you need para to communicate with the backend sa JavaScript. So, gawa tayo example na yan. Follow pa ba na ako? Okay pa ba? So, let's just jump into it. So, dito tayo, punta dito sa empty folder. Gawa tayo ng HTML file. So, just to review, HTML files end with a .html na file name. So, let's just do that. So, let's try test.html. Yan. So, di ba, as napakita niya ni Zaldy kanina, alam na natin kung ano ang structure ni HTML file. So, meron tayong HTML tag. Meron tayong header tag. Hindi ko pa alam actually anong full na laman ni header, pero pwede tayong maglagay ng title. So, itong title, yan ang makikita natin dito. If makita ninyo, basta yung makita niyo sa tab, muna makita ninyo sa title. Yes. So, let's go back here. Sorry. Okay, dito. So, let's say, for example, this is my web page's title. And then, sa loob ng HTML file, meron ding body. And then dito na natin ilagay ating mga HTML elements for display. So, meron tayong paragraph. We can use this tag. So, this is a paragraph. Yan. Okay na. So, oh, my bad. Head pala, not header. Yan. This is the most basic, I think, o para traditional lang. Let's say, hello world. So this HTML file, you can run it on any browser. So as you can see, yung icon niya, ipakita ba ninyo? Yung icon niya naging Firefox. Yan, naging Firefox siya. You can also open it with Chrome, with Edge, anong browser pili mo. So, but for this example, let's just open with Firefox kasi yan ang aking main browser na ginagamit. So just open that. So yan, as you can see, ito ating paragraph. This is our HTML file. And if makita natin sa title, yan, this is my web page's title. So ito ang basic structure ni website. So let's jump to an example na medyo pre-built na. Sandali. Naggumawa din ako ng daan ng file just so we can fast track things. So cd, then. So yan, so let's view the file I made. So dito siyang pupita. So again, this is our HTML file. Here we have the title. This is the heading. Ito ang laman ng body ng ating HTML file. So tingnan natin ang code. Very easy to follow. Itong tag na to, I think standard lang to na tag just to indicate na HTML5. Yun yung kailangan to i-mine na yun. So anyways, as you can see, nandito ang ating base structure ni HTML. Meron tayong HTML tag that encompasses our whole file. Meron tayong head na file, tag. So nandito ang title ng ating web page, which is kita ninyo dito. And I will talk about this later, right after this. So let's just run through it quick. So dito ang body tag, dito niyo ilagay lahat ng inyong content to be shown sa web page niyo. So meron tayong div, I'll talk about this later after this. So meron tayong heading, as you can see, kaya siya naka-bold kasi these tags, itong mga HTML heading tags, naka-number siya from 1 to 6. So the bigger the number, mas maliit siya. So let's try that now, ha? Try natin. This is a smaller heading. Save natin, refresh natin ang page. As you can see, makita ninyo, merong smaller heading na na-add because of this tag we had. So kayo na bala to adjust according to what your page needs. Itong empty paragraph na tag, I'll talk about it after this. Here we have the text na makita natin dito. So if you're wondering, itong CSS made me, hala, saan to galing? Wala man to, this wasn't in the code. Ang nasa code lang is ang P-class CSS text. So as you've learned kanina sa lecture ni Zaldy or sa kanyang CSS na demo, so we can use CSS to make our web page prettier para mas maganda siya tingnan. Not only that, ang ating CSS, meron din siyang ability to add content. Though hindi ko pa siya masyado na-try, pero it's there if you need it. So again, so if you're wondering, hala, bakit nasa ibang file lagi si CSS? Okay lang kaya yan? Yes, it's okay. You can either, sa demo ni Zaldy kanina, you can either put your CSS here, ito, sa loob ng style, or para gusto mo mas malinis yung file structure mo, gumawa ko ng ibang file called index.css nandito sa loob ng ating CSS, and then gamitin mo na itong link na tag, itong just follow the syntax. Tapos href, ito ang directory or ang file path ng CSS file mo. So if you're wondering, yes, this is widely used. Pwede ka rin maglagay ng mas maraming CSS files. So let's say for example, meron kang ibang CSS files for whatever reason gusto mo gawin and gusto mo gamitin. So you can just put a lot of these. Let's say index 2, 3, 4. So whatever classes ang nasa loob ni index 2, index 3, index 4, magamit mo siya dito sa class, di ba? That's how we assign a CSS class. So gawa ito na class. That's how we assign a CSS class or style group to an element sa ating HTML. So as you can see here, ating div, basically ang gawa ni div para siyang block, code block sa sa UI. So sana yun, since isa lang siya na div, it will encompass your whole web page. Ito ang buong div, sama lang siya. Pero later, once I demo itong JavaScript na example, mag-expand siya, yung div mo basically covers the whole, mag-adjust na siya accordingly. So yan. Okay lang ba? Any questions so far? Okay lang ba ating pace? Okay lang ba mga boss? Sige, sige. Okay. So, yan. Just to review, itong dot heading, this is the convention to make a CSS class. So, ikaw bahala anong pangalan mo dyan. If meron kayong experience making classes sa C# or sa mga classes niyo, it's the same thing. Basically, nag-instantiate ka ng heading na class with these styling na attributes to apply to a HTML element. So this is an HTML element, this is an HTML element, so on and so forth. Lahat nasa loob ng body mo HTML elements. Okay. So if you're wondering anong ginagawa nitong class heading, basically, 'di ba, na-discuss na ni Zaldy kanina, pero just to review, ginawa natin itong buong webpage natin into a flexbox. Ginawa natin into a flexbox. So, ibig sabihin, and in-indicate ko rin ano ang flex direction niya. What that means is, so lahat ng mga children ni flexbox dito sa loob, they will be aligned vertically. So, if papansin mo, if ilagay ko dito, if itanggal ko to, kasi if you remember earlier sa na-discuss ni Boss Zaldy, ang default value ni flex direction is row. So kung gawin ko to, they will be aligned horizontally like this. Kasi ang ating container, ang ating parent, naka-flex direction row. Ibig sabihin, i-align niya tabi-tabi ang items, ang mga flex children natin horizontally. That's why naglagay ako ng flex direction column. Para lang, they will be aligned vertically like this. Mas malinis siya tingnan, di ba? Pero depende na yun yan.
Hi guys. So sige, hintayin lang natin si ah si Waji for his kasi aware siguro siya na DC siya.
Smith to inbound. Back to Doncic. Doncic pulls up, three-pointer. Bang! It's good.
NBA naman tayo
Wins the
dito.
game at the buzzer. Ball from coming in.
Hanap muna kayo ng makain nyo dyan, guys. Luto na muna kayo ng pansit. Habang wala.
Iced tea daw, te Carms.
Og pan po daw.
Hil ha. Asa na yung merienda namin? Kadami na ba? Ilang seminar na nag-attenda natin lahat?
Ay mo kabala ka tagay sa mog sito litro mantay lang gyud natin na mahurot.
Ayun. Tama
Pwede, ano
dyan.
gawin natin sa budget if ever? Bigyan tayo ng budget.
Rent out ang subs ha. Pag may
Pagkain.
school na.
Wala
Lahat ng subs nyo kayo maging ano pizza yan. Yang siguro 6 na subs. 100 subs. May isang pizza yan. Wala mang tanong ang iba so far, no? Like, ano ang career ng ano, bakit kung mag-web dev kami, dapat ba IT na lang gikuha ko, baka nag-CS lang ako. Wala may pangutanan na nasa, no? About career options.
Siguro if flexible ba tayo enough na i-accept tayo sa position na usually gina-hire is IT. Since coming ating path, i-accept na tayo sa mga ganun na position.
That's actually a good question, no, Bren, no? Na kung sabihin, tanungin mo, really, is there a difference na kung if they have this scope better suited for them, why do we have to go to their area of expertise? Ang tubag lang yun na is really, if you really want a job na hardcore fundamental hardware good na microprocessing chip na may trabaho kaya pala na, and actually there's a lot of it sa Laguna.
Laguna.
Yeah.
Laguna, baby. Nandun lahat.
Cebu, meron din sa Cebu, meron mga manufacturing plants doon. Pero dili good siya tawag ni mas accessible good unfortunately ang kaning development sa software side kay basically you just need a very cheap computer, dili kailangan og tawag ni access sa intense hardware. Pero kung tayo mag-hardware kailangan nimo usually kung gusto nimo mag-breakthrough sa career, I usually have to study well beyond siguro sa masters para ma-consider ka to actually develop sa kaning processor na mismo. So kato na natin si Waji. Back to
Asa
you,
ko na
Waj.
putol. Asa ko na putol.
Balik lang tayo mong slides. Ay, sa imong presentation.
Asa man dito? Asa dito?
I-present sa daw. Hindi na ako ma-telltale. Naputol ko medyo.
Oh. Saan na putol carbs? Maalala niyo ba?
Wait lang.
Kung sino man
Hindi ko
nakabigis.
maalala. Sa pagparata yun. Help.
Yung yung may row column. Pero
Patingin
after
mo
nun,
yung kwan.
after sa row column part,
Gigi. Wala. Dito. Ito ang ito pa
yan.
yung na-present ko. Dito?
Yan
Oh,
pa
ba yung CSS pa?
doon.
Tama ba?
Yung kanina.
Saan dito banda? Na naka
Nalagay na ba yung button before?
Lalagay ko ang button, wala pa. Wala pa.
Wala pa man ata
Sige.
kanina.
Skip na natin dun. Sige. Sorry na po tol. Anyway, basically, ito ang CSS class mo. This is how you put a CSS link, a CSS file. So, pwede mo yan damihin. So, let's just say, for example, gusto mo na maraming CSS files or meron kang ibang CSS files na gusto mo na classes from other files. Lagay mo lang dito. Pwede yung next 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Ako na bahala dyan. Basta any classes within these files ay tatawag mo siya dito. Lagay mo lang siya dito agad. Anyways, that's for CSS. For JavaScript naman, as you can see, dito ang ating, meron akong bagong ginalagay na paragraph na element, pati button. So, basically, ang JavaScript, same lang siya sa, medyo similar siya sa C#. It's easy to transition from C# to JavaScript. Mapansin niyo, di ba, familiar to. And then, hindi ako sure kung ma-remember ko, medyo matagal lang walang C#. Hindi ko sure kung maalala ko kung paano mag-declare ng function. Parang ganito, ito di ba, public void, blah, blah. Parang ganyan. Oh, ganyan yan, di ba?
Yes,
Or pwede ka rin mag-specify ng return type.
Yes, kuya.
Yes, kuya.
Tama, di ba? Sige. So, parang ganyan yan. Okay, so sa JavaScript, hindi mo na kailangan, you don't need to explicitly do that. Although you can, pero that's for a different topic. Try ko explain mo. So anyways, sa function ni JavaScript, pwede ka you can just type code dito sa loob, i-execute niya. Hindi mo kailangan ng return, hindi mo kailangan mag-return ng anything. Or, pwede ka rin mag-return ng anything. Ikaw bahala. So, pwede ka mag-return ng string, pwede ka mag-return ng number, pwede ka mag-return ng object. Ikaw bahala. Or nothing at all. So, ang purpose natin dito for this function is just to do a specific na action for us. So, in this example, if makita ninyo, meron tayong text dito. I am controlled by the JavaScript function. And meron button that says, I trigger the JavaScript function. So, basically, pag i-click natin ang button, if mapansin nyo, ito ang ating function dito. Tawagin niya itong function natin. Itong syntax niya. And then, every time i-click natin si button, of course, ma-execute ito na code block. So, basically, ang ginagawa nitong code block is, for this example, nag-set ako ng variable na flag. So, false. So, pag i-click natin si function, kung false, this basically means if false, di ba? Alam na naman yan. If not flag, ibig sabihin, if false si flag, execute na ito, else, execute na ito, basic. Alam niyo, di ba? Basically, itong document by get element ID, ito ang way para mag-communicate si JavaScript sa HTML code niyo. So, hindi na ako masyado sure sa low level nito na explanation, pero basta yan. So, by what the name implies, mag-go through siya sa HTML code mo, tapos, maghanap siya ng HTML element na may ID na test. So, if tingnan natin, ang ating HTML na code, meron tayong isang paragraph with an ID test. So, dito siya magpasok. And then, once it gets this element, once makuha niya yung element, i-manipulate niya ang style niya, the visibility style, and then hidden niya. So, di ba, exit niya siya dito. After that, i-toggle niya ang ating flag. So, basically, after the initial press of this, gawin niyang hidden si I am controlled by the JavaScript function. And then, maging true na si flag. Maging true na siya. The next time you press itong semi-function, itong button, dito na siya magpasok, di ba? Ay, true naman siya. And then, it will just repeat the process. So, basically, itong function natin, i-toggle niya lang ang toggle niya ang itong visibility. So, parang ganyan. You can see, if makita nyo din dito sa side, you can see the style property, nag-change siya. So yan, that's basically JavaScript. That's how you communicate. That's how you make more functionality, mas dynamic ang web page mo. Pwede ka you can do all sorts of functions with it. So basically, say for example, mag-display ka ng, for example dito, display ka ng paragraph or display a date, change the date. Ikaw bahala. Whatever you can do with JavaScript, you can do here. So yan. Okay. So, okay na tayo, di ba? Or may questions pa ba kayo? Wala na ba? Okay lang. Okay. So, ang next niyan, so nagawa na tayo ng website. Meron na tayong website, di ba? Functioning, nag-run na siya. Ito, pero sa ating local pa lang to. So, tayo pa lang maka-access nito. Ang question na yun, ano gawin natin na yun? Now what? So, nakagawa ka ng website. Joy na, naka-ano ka ng website, nice. I want people to use it. Pero paano? So, ang website natin, of course, has to be on the internet for everyone to access it, di ba? So, ang process na transferring your, or uploading your code from your computer to the internet, tawag sa kanya, deployment. So, that's a general term for deploying front-end code, back-end code. Basically, anything i-deploy mo para magamit siya by your website. So, popular na hosting services kay Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Services, yung GCP, or GCP as you would like to call it, Heroku. Yung sa example ni Zaldy kanina, di ba, na-access na yung kanyang website online. I-deploy niya yun through GitHub pages, if I'm not wrong. Hindi ako sure. Correct me if I'm wrong lang, pero yes, i-deploy niya through GitHub pages. Pero para sa atin, we will be using AWS kasi fairly madali lang siya. I will not walk you through how to make an account, kaya nabahala dyan. Pero basically, madali lang deploy ng website mo. So let's say for example, okay na to. Itong website na ito, gusto ko to magamit sa lahat ng ibang tao. So we have to deploy it. So isang service na magamit natin is AWS. Ito. Basically, very detailed on docs nito. Ang nakasabi dito kay React application, pero pwede lang din siya for anything else. Ating basic na HTML na project, pwede natin i-deploy and then magamit na rin. So, basically, ang gawin muna natin is mag-create tayo ng repository. So, of course, para magamit yung code mo online, you also have to upload it online. So, ito sa method ni Amazon Web Services, pwede natin i-connect siya, ang ating code, either through a Bitbucket or GitHub repository or any other repository service or version control service na gusto mo. So in our case, magamit ako ng Bitbucket. So disclaimer lang, hindi ako magturo as to how to do source control kasi that can be an entirely different webinar itself. Pero just for the demonstration purposes, ito. So gawa tayo ng repository. Let's make our repository. And then, dito natin i-upload ang ating code. Pwede nyo isipin na para siyang Google Docs or Google Drive ng source code ninyo. So, pwede nyo i-upload dito ang code ninyo. So, para ma-upload natin, just follow the instructions. So, I will clone this. Kita mo siguro, no? I will clone this repository first para malagyan natin yung code natin. Kasi, if mapansin ninyo, ang code natin nasa loob ni HTML demo na folder. And then, for us to transfer it here, we can just do this first. So, nandito na ang ating repository, ang test HTML repository. So, if mapasok tayo sa test HTML repository, walang laman, di ba? Walang laman except yung git na initialization na folder. So let's just copy our HTML files, CSS and JavaScript to this repository. So how do we do that? Depending on the terminal, I'm using a WSL terminal. So rsync our HTML demo to test HTML demo. So basically, ang ginagawa nito, ito parang package to ng terminal to copy ang contents ng folder ni HTML demo, which is itong files natin, into the repository. Gawin natin yan. So pasok tayo sa ating repository na sa local. Ito, sa loob na, di ba? So para kung i-refresh natin, balik sa ating repository dito sa Bitbucket or GitHub if you would prefer, pero same lang ang process niyan. Sorry, medyo may ng internet. Basically, wala pa yung laman. Of course, kaya wala pa man natin ang files natin na dito pa rin sa computer. Wala pa natin na-upload or na-push into our remote repository. So, para magawin yan, again, yan, di ba? Wala pa siyang laman. So, we have to push it. So, I won't go into detail as to what I'm doing right now. Pero these commands basically upload your code to this repository. Commit initial commit. Okay, wala po natin yan. For a moment. Sorry. Yan. Git push origin. So basically, na-push ko na ang ating local code into our repository or sa ating Google Drive ng ating code. So if refresh natin ito na page, hala, nandito ito ating code. So, sublime. Ang next step natin, dire. So, ang next step natin for people to actually use, kasi basically, di ba, parang Google Drive lang ito. So, paano i-access ng tao? So, using Amazon Web Services, we can make that possible. So, mag-connect lang tayo. Ito ang maganda sa AWS kasi meron kasing process when you're developing software or web apps. You store all of your code dyan sa parang Google Drive ng code ninyo or Bitbucket or GitHub. And then, usually, iba ang process ng pag-deploy. But AWS Amplify makes it very easy for us. So, ang gawin lang natin is, di ba ito ang ating repository, nandito na ating code. Ang gawin natin is, i-connect lang natin to our version control. Is, as you can see, meron GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, AWS Code Connect. Hindi ko alam anong gawa nito. Wala ko pa na-try, so don't take my word for it. Pero since in our case, Bitbucket gamit natin. Yan. So, connect natin yan. Wait for a while. Ayan. So, naka-connect na ang ating Bitbucket account to our AWS account. So, na yun, all we have to do now is choose the repository kung saan dito ang app natin. In this case, di ba dito tayo nag-upload sa test HTML repository. Dito ang ating website, this website. If you guys have forgotten, na gusto natin gamit sa ibang tao. So, let's select that. And then, ito, master branch lang muna. And then, let's just complete these other, next mo lang yan. And then, if makita ninyo, may nakasabi na save and deploy. So, as I've mentioned earlier, ang deployment is to upload our code to a hosted web server para magamit ng ibang tao. Just like any other website on the internet. So, yan. I-deploy na natin. So, ginagawa na niya. So, let's just wait for a while. And Recently ko lang din to nahanap itong AWS Amplify. Very easy. Different siya na process for back-end stuff, which I may, if may time pa, explain ko mamaya. Pero generally, ito ang for front-end. So, ito nating repo, na-process pa niya. So, it's still trying to build it. So, meron pa siyang ginagawa, blah, blah, blah. Siya na bahala niyan. So, lahat ng hard work that could have been done by us, ginawa na ni AWS. So, yan. Let's just wait for it to build, deploy, and verify para magamit na natin.
Unsay domain name ana?
Ang domain name niya kay depende sa branch na gipili mo dito sa tawag nito. Branch sa repository na gilink mo. And parang meron siyang preset na na domain name ng Amplify. To be honest, wala pong experience sa pag-change ng domain name. I think you can, pero paid siya na service, I think. So if you want that, you have to pay for it. But for now, since for demo purposes lang ito, you can just use this link for now. Kung gusto niyo ipaganda, ang link niyo, let's say for example, ano mang gusto niyo na name, for example, testdemo.com, gusto niyo yan ang talaga magpakita instead of this long link. Kailangan niyo bilhin. Yun lang. So, malapit na siya to verify. Ayun! Tapos na siya. So, let's see if it's working. Open ko ang link. Yes, it's working. So, i-send ko to na link sa Google, sa chat right now. Try nyo i-access. Di ko kapalit ko, ako'y kwarta. Ang link dire, you can try to open it. And, it's there. Yan. So, Diloy, open ninyo. Paki-confirm, please. Yun, very good. So, itong functionality na magawa nyo rin, di ba? I assume so, kasi na-deployed successfully si website. So, basically, yan. Meron ka ng website, nakagawa ka ng sarili mong website using basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript, na-deploy mo, magamit na siya ng tao. That's how easy it is with AWS. Wala pa akong nakatry sa ibang services, but I would assume na madali lang din siya. Pero yes, that's how easy it is to make your own website. And this is madali lang siya. If you think about it, medyo madali lang siya isipin si HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It is a very important foundation if you're going to pursue front-end or maybe even a bit of back-end kasi kailangan mo pa rin deal with HTML, CSS konti. Pero mostly for front-end, importante siya na tawag nito. Importante siya na foundation for using other frameworks, other libraries for front-end na kailangan sa mga jobs na yun. So yan, okay na to. Another neat thing about AWS is since itong ating AWS na host, nakalink siya dito sa ating repository. So, ang very good thing about this is each time magawa tayo ng changes sa code, hindi na natin kailangan mag-redeploy. Siya na bahala. So, to demonstrate, mag-add ako dito ng code block. You can see, di ba? Kita nyo? Yan. Yan. So, di ba may bagong code block? Yan sila. So, gusto ko rin ma-reflect siya dito. Pero, how do I do that? Simple. So, we just make changes. Wait lang. Hindi ko na-disconnect. Sorry, wait lang. Yan. Okay. So, para magawa natin yan, ang gawin lang natin is to yan. Para magawa natin yan, we make code changes, ano mo gusto natin makita sa ating website. Makita natin na may changes. We just basically upload na natin ang changes. Test code. Alam yan. Push. So as soon as we push this, give it a while. So as soon as ma-push natin to, okay, na-update na ang ating repository. So, makita natin yan dito. Ayun lang kayo, medyo mahina din aking net. Sorry for that. But anyways, kita natin dito sa commit messages. Wala, may bago. So, na-upload natin successfully yung ating gusto na code changes. So, ito yun siya, di ba? So, if we notice, refresh natin to sa AWS for a while. Medyo mahina siya. So, ang neat thing about AWS Amplify, if gamitin nyo to na service is, pag mag-push kayo dito, kung anumang branch ang i-assign ninyo, di ba kanina, if na-remember ninyo, we connected this repository to our hosting service, and then gipili natin ang master branch. So, kung anumang changes na gi-push natin dito sa master, detect niya ito agad, and then, ayun, nagawa niya ganit niya. So, ma-detect niya ito agad, and then, it will auto-deploy, it auto-build and auto-deploy the website. As you can see, if you open nyo ulit ang link na gisend ko dito sa chat, na-change na siya. Hindi na siya ito, but this. Yan. So yan, that's one of the basics, how to make your own website. Any questions? So, pangutan na dira. Anong companies? A lot of companies actually use AWS. Ang alam ko, not exactly AWS Amplify, pero yung mga ibang services ni AWS, like itong EC2, CloudWatch, Lambda. Itong marami sila masyadong services. Widely used, S3. The software firm I used to work with, Ingenuity, uses AWS. Ang alam ko, I have a friend that works for Shopee, ginagamit na rin ng AWS kasi, as you know, Shopee deals with very big data, and AWS suits their needs for storing and processing these heavy data. So yan, very widely used si AWS. Okay, yan. So, okay na. So, next, ang gusto ko lang i-discuss, I think I only have 30 minutes left, pero dalian ko na lang. So if you've noticed, sa ating code, di ba, meron tayong code block that acts as a, para siyang info, sabihin natin. Meron tayong, for students. Hi, I'm student's name. I'm in my blank year of computer engineering. So, if mapansin nyo sa code, repeating siya, di ba? Repeating siya. So, that's why dito nakapasok ang mga frameworks. Well, ang introduce ko sa inyo na yun is not really a framework but a library built before on top of HTML. Pero parang it's big enough to be mistaken for a framework. It's called React.js. So commonly known as React. So one of the tools na ginagamit sa front-end devs, very useful, very quick, very easy to learn. So JavaScript lang siya na library, but again, it's big enough to be made into a framework. So it's a library mainly used to build single-page applications or SPAs. So ano may mga SPA? If mapansin nyo, may gilista ko dito ng mga websites, Facebook, Trello, Gmail, Google Drive, Twitter, SoundCloud. I'm pretty sure naka-visit na kayo niyan lahat. If ma-notice niyo dito sa mga websites, hindi siya madalas nag-reload. Magets ba? Para siyang, it's a single page application in a sense na whatever you do or whatever function na gawin mo within these websites, parang hindi nag-reload ang page, only a part of it re-renders. Gets pa? Let's say, pakita ko na lang. Let's say, punta tayo sa Drive. Drive. Yan. So, this is my Google Drive. So, if mapansin ninyo, if I click on this folder, alam ko familiar kayo lahat sa Google Drive. Mag-click ko dito ng folder. Di ba, wala nag-refresh ang page. Ang nangyari kay, parang meron lang section of the web page na nagre-render. Yan ang parang essence ni single page application. Mas mabilis siya kasi you don't need to reload every time. Meron lang specific part of the web page that renders. So, bale yan ang foundation ni React. So, meron other sites that use React that is built on React.js or React Native, their mobile version counterpart. So, meron Facebook, Instagram, Netflix, Reddit, Dropbox, Airbnb. All these sites are most, if not all, built on React. So, why React? So, again, sabi ko, scalable siya. Has a big community. It is backed by Facebook and also maintained by other communities. So marami na siyang, it is a very useful library to build web applications. And then since JavaScript lang siya, pwede siya pure JavaScript. So kung marunong ka mag-JavaScript, marunong ka mag-React. It's that simple. Meron ka lang i-learn ng mga React na syntax, but other than that, yun na yun. You're done. Marunong ka mag-React. So in a sense, kung magamit ka ng React, kung marunong ka mag-JavaScript, tutukan ka ng konting React, magagawa, not only can you make more robust, scalable, and fast single-page applications, web applications, pwede ka rin mag-mobile dev. That's how good React is. So, I mean, it's not the only front-end na library or framework, pero marami ding, there are also plenty of jobs that look for React dev. So, if you're interested in front-end, kung gusto mo gawa ng websites, design, and then you can use this library to make things easier for you and keep up to date with the latest tech in the industry. So, so just to show you how Facebook delete. So just to show you how easy it is to make a React app. So dito, punta tayo sa docs. Meron ng docs si Create React App. So copy lang natin to. Usually ito na command na gagamitin ninyo. Kasi you have to install Node. Bale parang library yan for your computer. Pero ako, you need Node anyways. Pero meron akong custom na library manager na ginagamit. Anyway, just to show you how easy it is to make a React app. So, copy lang natin yung code. Yan. Pero, test React app. Itong test React app, gina-rename ko to kasi I already made a repository for it para mas mapa-fast track lang tayo. Yan. So, once we do that, let's just wait for it to install. Gumagawa na siya ng React app for us. So, let's just let it download, just let it process. And then, yun na, you have a React app. And as I said earlier, built siya on top of HTML. So, bali, library lang talaga siya. Pakita ko sa inyo ang structure mamaya. Basically, it's, bali, if maalala nyo kanina, di ba, ito ang ating HTML. So, marami tayong mga HTML elements inside our body. Ang React, basically, within this, ito lang ginaano niya. Ang React natin, all our React code is, wala na to sila. Ignore mo yan ibang other code. Lahat ng React code natin is inside this one div. So lahat ng changes or lahat ng re-rendering, lahat ng data, lahat ng pages that involves our web application or website, nakaloob na siya sa isang div. So I'll show you what that means later. Yan, okay na. Okay na ating React app. Build na siya. So let's just go into the directory of our React app. And then, turn start. Or, nakasabi sa docs, 10 p.m. start. And there's our React app. And if you're wondering, sige, pasukan natin yung kanyang source code to show ito para mas madali niyo maintindihan. So, meron kayong source folder. Itong CSS. Itong CSS, yan siya ang, if you're already guessed, yan siya para sa styling, ba't ito nag-ikot, kung mga links, whatever, yun yung lahat. Alam niyo to, JS. So basically, if makita ninyo, punta tayo dito sa public, di ba, like our file earlier, like sa ating repo earlier, sorry. Meron tayong index.html, right? Same lang yan kay React. So meron tayo dito, HTML single, HTML file. So, nandito na yung mga ating mga like na explain ni Zaldy kanina, meta, link, whatever. Ito yung React app, as you can see, di ba? Title. Nakasabi din dito, itong title, React app. So, lahat ng ating code, as I've said, dito lang sa lahat ng root. All of our React code is within this root. So, di ba, if you're wondering, saan man ito, like, saan mo ito makita? Bakit ito makita mo? Ang laman ng index HTML kay empty div. So, in the background, meron tayong index.js file. So, ito yung library, as again, in JavaScript or in, this is how you import libraries. So, as like I said kanina, library lang si React, and then meron lang parang magic dito nangyari. Actually, hindi ko na explain sa inyo. Basta ito ang nakaparender sa ating React app. So, di ba, if familiar ito sa inyo na parang code kanina, so it will search sa ating HTML file for an element na may ID na root. So, meron ito, di ba? Yan siya. And then, it will render our application. So, kung nag-wonder pa kayo kung saan ito galing, dito siya lahat sa loob ng app.js. Yan. Wait ha. So, para lang mapakita. Yan. Another neat thing about React is any kind of changes you make sa code. So for example, ito mo yan na text, no? Edit, blah, blah, blah. Pag maggawa kayo ng changes, any kind of changes at all, and if you save it, it should be reflected. On save, mag-reload yung compiler mo and my bad. Oops. Sorry. Sige, ulit. So, meron diba ito, diba? This should be reflected on current. So, if i-edit natin to, blah, 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 save natin. As you can see, nag-re-render ang ating page right away and makita natin agad ang changes. So, what's one of the, meron siyang called hot reloading, one of the handy na features ni React. So, ang gawin ko na yun, gusto ko, kung ano man ginagawa natin sa HTML natin, we can also recreate it in React. So, what I will do is, kunin ko yung code natin kanina. I'll just copy all of this into our React app. Copy ko lang to. For the CSS, yeah, medyo mas strict si React. You need to close all of your tags. And then ating CSS din, add lang natin. Moment. To the app.css. Dito man siya nakakuha ng CSS. Parang bale sa React, pwede mo na i-import daan. If maalala mo kanina, we had to use this tag pa. Ay, natanggal mo pala. Anyway, we have to use a tag pa, a link tag para ma-link yung ating CSS. Pero for React, pwede na natin i-import daan si CSS code. So once we save this, yan, di ba? Kita na siya. Same sa ating HTML app kanina. Recreate lang natin siya sa sa React. So you might you might be wondering, so kung magawa ko siya sa HTML, bakit ako mag-React? So again, React is a library or a tool that can help you make more robust and single-page applications. By definition, ha? Pero sa aking experience kasi, para mas madali, kita niyo tong repeating code, di ba? Hindi siya gawin, di ba? Kailangan mo copy-paste, ulit-ulitin mo. Wouldn't it be nice if ma-lessen natin ang code and mas maging dynamic siya? Yan yung one of the features of React. Component-based kasi si React. I'll just show you what it means para mas mag-gets nyo. So let's just make a function in React can also act as something to render. So before that, nag-wonder ko, but function man ito, di ba? As I've explained earlier, this is a JavaScript function. Paano siya nag-render ng div? Si React na bahala niyan. So let's just remember na any function na gawin natin, we can render HTML code. So that's what we'll do para ma-recreate natin ito just to make the code smaller. So let's say student info. Yan. Return. Copy lang natin to. But instead, we will replace this with object properties. So name here. I'm name. I'm in my year of engineering. So anong nangyari dito? Basically, nagawa tayo ng function that returns a code block, this code block, and para we can reuse this function, lagyan na natin siya ng name and year. Anything, pwede natin kahit anong ma-render. So, how do we do that? Very simple. Since ito na function, nandito na daan sa file, we can just use it right away. Pero, may ibang convention yan. Usually, you store all of these files in another folder, pero I won't get into that na lang. So anyways, delete natin to. Meron tayong, di ba, ang name ng ating function is, our function to display student info is student info. So, student info. Tapos, meron tayong parang mga properties or fields that we need to supply para mag-render to siya correctly. So, name, we can put anything here. So, for example na lang, student info. Name. Chill. Year. May IntelliSense din siya, which is nice. So, mas madali siya. Yan. So, yun natin balik. Yan, di ba? Nag-render siya, just like the same kanina. Pero, di ba, mas shorter ating code and it's a lot easier to use kasi compared kanina, na kailangan nito i-rewrite each time div h4p. I-rewrite natin tapos static pa talaga siya, hindi siya dynamic. We can't exactly, in order to modify, parang naka-hard code siya ba? So, in order to circumvent that, meron na tayong ito na component, we made this component, and pwede tayong maglagay as much as we want. So let's say, for example, Julian, 6th year na siya. Say, ako, 6th year na rin ako. Yun pa ba? Si Carms, 6th year na siya. For example, yan. You can put as much as you want. It will render. And as you can see, dynamic ang kanyang content. So that's one of the perks ng React. Yeah, parang ito ang style, and I'm not sure. As you can, I think I would like you to imagine how the overall file structure would work. So dito sa loob ng function, ating main function that renders sa ating root, pwede ka pa magawa ng isa pang page like this that will render another page, so on and so forth. So yan ang ayun lang. Our button isn't working because, of course, wala siyang function. So let's just fix that real quick. So mas madali siya dito sa React app function. My function. Gawa na tayo ng function. And you can still use this at yeah. Copy lang natin yung code kanina. I-copy lang natin ito. Yeah. Click. My function. You can notice, medyo ibang kanya syntax, but that's okay. Yung same functionality. So that's on the surface ng React. So I hope you can see how useful it can be, how convenient. Sorry. So, how convenient it can easily get for developing front-end applications. So itong buong thing, pwede mo itong gawing component, pwede mo itong reuse in another page. Itong button, pwede mo itong gawing component, pwede mo siya i-spam, pwede mo siya gamitin in another place. Unlike dito sa ating base HTML, now we have to rewrite this code all the time. At least sa React, it's a bit less tedious. So mag-demo pa sana ako on how to deploy this. Nagawa ako ng test repo. Pero I don't think I need to. Kaya it's the same thing. I-upload lang natin itong code natin and then i-connect natin sa AWS. And yun. Connect lang natin sa AWS and same thing, ma-access niyo na ang aking React app sa inyong computer. So I don't, again, sa ating na-present, it's a very simple app, but with React, I mean, you can still do those mga flashy websites with, base HTML, and you definitely should. Nice practice siya if marunong ka mag-base HTML, CSS, JavaScript, kaya masyado si React. You'll be able to very easily adapt. And again, since in demand siya, you'll be able to easily land jobs and get promoted. Ganyan. So, again, like I said, hindi siya very elegant na project, but I would just like to show you one of the projects we have built on using React. So, I will present it here, and I will also link it sa inyo just for you to see. Sorry, medyo mahina lang. Yan. Okay, this is busted. Never mind. Ito na lang. Ito na lang. So recently, nakagawa kami ng a bunch of friends have made a web form for pro-life. So that's one example of a single-page application. Lahat ng content ng website mo, it's all in one page. So pwede nyo in-visit, if you like to explore on your own. This website or web application is purely made on React front-end and a Node.js backend. So yun din, if you also have time, if you take time to devote and learn JavaScript, you can pwede ka maging full stack in a sense and make entire websites by yourself. But of course, when you're starting out, it would also be nice to work with a team, kasi when you're working, most of the time you will be working with teams, freelance or not. So importante siya to it's an important skill to learn. Kuya, na web development. Yes, meron development using C#. Hindi ako masyado familiar with it, but I think it's called C# Razor Pages. So basically, ginagamit niya .NET. So we basically .NET developer ka. For the back end, pwede mo gamitin for the lower years na wala pa. Eventually, if you do get to the DBMS class ni Sir Dex, pwede niyo yung gamitin. Pwede kayo maging .NET developer. You can create APIs. You can create your own mga databases. Yeah, Sir Dex, admittedly, mahirap si .NET. Mas madali matutunan even if you're starting from scratch. Si Python, si Node. Pero bias lang yan kasi ayaw ko na sa C#. Kung type niyo, then go right ahead. You can be a software developer with any language you want, even kahit yung Java. as old as that. So yeah, merong for the front end, merong Razor pages. Pero basically, ano to? HTML, CSS, JavaScript pa rin ito. Pero merong konting configuration using C# and .NET. Yes. Mga in-demand? Okay, so let's move to that part of the talk na. So, life of a junior developer. So, before ko i-answer ko yung question, so, flexible siya if you're working as freelance. Kasi of course, per depende rin sa boss mo or agency mo. Pero, just to share, dito na room, ako pati si Zaldy. Same agency kami in a sense ng freelance. So, we control our time in the week. Basta maka-render kami ng 20 hours or kung anumang hours gina-require ng boss mo sa week, basta maka-render ka, ay you can do it. And if you're working for a company or a firm, okay lang din. If most tech companies na hindi corporate kay flexible naman, friendly sila. Ako nga, just to share, di ba, katrabaho ko si Zaldy na yun sa freelance. Or I'm also hired at a firm na 8 hours a week, pero they respect my time sa school. Alam nila nag-school ako. It's okay. Kay nakapasa man ako sa kanilang parang interview and all. So, tanggap pa rin ako. Struggle lang siya because of course, kailangan mo juggle ng school and work, pero it's very fulfilling. And yun, you mostly work with teams. Very rarely na ikaw lang isa. Usually, pag ikaw lang isa, kay nag-apply ka specifically for a position, for a project na isa lang kailangan nila, or full stack ka. So, full stack developer ka. So, most would hire you. Ikaw lang isa. Kasi, alangan, mas makaipon sila. Kaya ikaw lang isa. They don't have to hire more. Pero again, in that sense, wag rin kayo magpa-devalue, know your worth, as they all say. If you're a full stack developer, definitely mas mataas talagang rate mo. So, just to give perspective, as a junior software developer, ang starting sahod mo usually ranges from 14,000, and kung swerte ka, upper echelon kay 20,000. Oh, yan. For freelance, of course, mas mataas ang rates kasi you're directly working with, kasi mostly mga clients mo kasi overseas. So, of course, yung mga dollars na yan, wala lang yan sa kanila. Pero for junior devs, most starting rates kay $3. If you compute mo yung 14,000 to 20,000 na range, it also ranges from as low as $1 to $5. So, depende na yan. Okay, so let's continue the questions. Unsa mga in-demand na framework? So, dagan actually. Right now sa market, dagan kayong in-demand for front-end. Of course, like I said kanina, React. Marami naghahanap ng React. Junior devs, senior devs, you name it. In-demand masyado si React, very widely used. Angular, mas sikat ata siya sa West kasi sa mga job offers na nakita ko or mga na-offer sa akin at least, mostly mostly React or mga other frameworks like Ember, ganyan. Pero the thing is with Angular din kasi, mahirap siya i-learn. Hindi siya as easy as React na pag marunong ka na mag-JavaScript, tuta ka konting React, you're a React dev and a React native dev. Marunong ka na. Si Angular, mas steep ang kanyang learning curve. For backend naman, for backend frameworks, usually Python devs, marami. Flask, Django. Those are web frameworks din. You can actually make websites with Django. Pero kailangan mo na ng konting knowledge with HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Pero mostly ang focus ni Django kay ang API side or ang admin side, which is backend work. Ano pa bang? So that's for Python, Django, Flask, Pyramid on the top of my head. For JavaScript na backend, again, nag-isabi ko kanina, Node.js. Node.js is widely used. For PHP, kung hindi ko alam kung sino mga interested dyan sa inyo, mga PHP devs, mostly ang in-demand na yun is Laravel for backend. For front-end, like na mention ni Bren ata kanina, is WordPress. Considered pa rin siya as front-end. You can make things from scratch, pero generally you're working with templates and plugins. So, parang builder pa rin siya. Okay, next, how did you get your first freelance job? Swerte ako kasi yung mga kawork ko sa office, kasi generally, when you start working in this industry, masense ko rin na it's either hindi siya enough or you want more. Money, that is. You want more work, you want to learn more, or you want more money, okay lang yan. It's usually all of the three din. Pwede rin siya. So, swerte ako, lahat ng aking workmates, office mates, may mga sideline din sila, freelance jobs. So, to answer your question, hindi ako masyado sure kasi ako mismo, wala ako nag-apply yung mga good job, online jobs sa PH or yung mga other freelancing websites na nag-hire ng devs. I can't give you advice there kasi wala ko nakatry. Swerte ako kasi yung freelance job ko na yun and currently ongoing, kami ni Zaldy, ay gi-hire kami by someone we know, which is also yung aking office mate. So, bale, siya ang client-facing, siya ang nagakuha ng mga freelance jobs as himself and gina-delegate sa amin yung mga tasks. So, meron din ganyan. If you're lucky to find someone with that kind of agency, okay lang din siya. Pero if makahanap pa ng freelance job on your own, definitely, mas mataas yung sahod. Unsa kadako ang impact sa repository pag nag-work ka? Pwede pa clarify, unsay pasabot nimo impact sa repository, like ang project structure mismo or pag-apply na sa work. Sorry, dili kayo na kung nasabtan. Pwede nimo i-restructure yung unsa question.
Kanang kuya, ginatan-a ba nila ang repository nimo pag nag-apply ka na for a firm?
Ay, depende yan. Thank you. Sabot na ko. Naailain na mga companies, stricto dun sila sa imong GitHub or Bitbucket profile, whatever. Stricto na sila, ginatanaw dun na nila. Pero general rule of thumb, okay lang, it's okay not to have a lot of projects, pero definitely don't keep it empty. Kasi dira nila ma-judge at a first glance, unsa klase ka na coder, unsa imong style, damak ba ka mag-code, limpyo pa ka mag-code, disiplinado ba ka, what kind of tech you use, what kind of tech you know, ana. So, yes, depende lang din siya sa asa ka nag-apply. So, naay mga firms or companies or freelance agents that are lenient, na pud stricto. So, general rule of thumb na lang kay keep it balanced. Ana jud kay damak pa ko mag-code. With my first interview, hindi man siya job interview pero internship interview. Nagihatakan jud ko feedback na damak jud ko mag-code, but it works. Yun lang, 'di ba? Mostly ang nagaano mo sa atin kay bala damak basta it works. Pero code cleanliness is important, especially when entering the industry because unlike sa ating experience na kita lang naka-code, kita lang ako atong classmate o si Sir Dex ang makakita sa industry, seniors and other teammates will be viewing your code. So it's important, very important na mabasa imong code. Ana. So, mas gwapo mag-freelance or mag-work for a firm. Kanang starting, I would say, personal lang niya, firm. Kasi, ang freelance kasi, hindi covered ang SSS in PhilHealth pag-ibig mo. Kanang mga benefits good that the company usually will cover for you, dili siya covered. Ikaw ang ikaw ang maglihok ana. And okay, good for you kapag kabalo ka, pero most of the time dili ka kabalo. And it's better na ang company ang mag-handle that for you and for experience. And I would say most firms that will hire junior devs, okay naman ang starting pay and it's a really great environment to learn. Target firms that have a good culture, company culture, pati ka ng most pangitaon po din yung devs, mga senior devs kasi sa senior devs jud mo makatuon. Ako ganit na yun. I'm still a junior dev. Aking mga learnings and mga itong ginagamit ko pangturo sa inyo na yun, galing lang dito sa aking senior dev. So, it's a great place to learn. So, and other teammates din of course if hawd-hawd na sila. Okay ra pod. Kung freelance kasi, if you'll start with freelance, isod siya gamay kay aside from having to ikaw mag-asikaso imong mga benefits, government benefits, most likely remote man gud na online. So dili kayo nimo maka-interact in imong mga teammates, di ka kabalo. Murag lain man gud ang physical interaction with your teammates or with your office mates in general. Bale, nice siya na experience and it helps. Pero depende lang po na sa tapos ako ha. It helps with the environment and it helps mas makatuon pud ka. Kana. So yan. Continuing that point, sa pag-starting nimo, of course, sa industry, sa atong curriculum at least, dili jud nimo ni matun-an. Dili ko sure sa curriculum sa mga first years or mga second years karon, dili ko sure. Pero definitely in our curriculum sa amin, mga higher years, wala jud na. It's all C#, back-end stuff, walang HTML, CSS. Nung nag-apply pa ako ng trabaho, doon pa ako natuto. And isipin mo na front-end dev ako. Pero it's definitely doable. So if you want a lot of experience in this industry, if you want to break through this industry, then, nice to learn on your own. And at the same time, people are kind enough to teach you during work. C#, dili ka na. Ew. Anyway, and another pro of being a junior developer, isipin mo, you're being paid to code. Dili ko sure sa inyo, if nalingaw mo, ako dili ko nalingaw, kanang mga data structures, yun yung na klase, I failed that class. Di ako ganahan. Pero katong mga DBMS na classes, katong mga system, whatever, okay man siya, pero mas na find jud na ko na lingaw ang front-end development. And isipin mo, you're getting paid to do that. So, it's a win-win for you. And definitely, if you keep treading in this line of work, mas dako jud imong gains. Kasi web development will not be out of demand anytime soon. Dagan jud nangitaw developers. So, give it a try. And coding is fun, as I've said. Depende na. Dili fun para sa ako atong mga classes, katong mga data structures in C#, dili ko ganahan. Kaya ako, as you've noticed, naka-frontend ako kay you don't have to deal with that much complicated logic. You still, at times, meron pa rin. Pero mostly, back-end ang nag-deal-an na. So yes. Sa job interviews, mag-include ang title or info na freelancing portfolio. Yes, definitely. It's one caveat I forgot to mention. Most firms, if you're working with firms, naka-NDA sila. What does NDA mean? NDA is non-disclosure agreement. So lahat ng mga projects mo, lahat ng works mo, lahat ng code mo, once you're in the company, dili ni muna madbutang sa imong portfolio. Kay, of course, we're under NDA. Lahat ng projects mo under that company is private. So you cannot put that. Ang malagay mo lang is experience. So, yan ang one edge ni freelance kasi, well, dependent din sa freelance if they have an NDA contract. Pero, most of the time, maputang ni muna sa imong portfolio ang project kung sa imong gi-work on, tech stack, whatever. So, yeah, that's one advantage ni freelance over working in a firm. So, any other questions? Before we end, 5:30 man pala. Meron na ba kayo question? Wala na tubag. Bren, itong question ni Sean ang gina-refer mo?
Wala kuya na-enter ko lang yan.
Okay. Sige. Okay, many other questions?
For example, like, compared to IT people, like, as a computer engineer, ano advantage natin when we do front-end development? Like, hindi ba mas advantage mga people from the IT course?
Yes, they are. To bluntly put it, yes, they are. Kasi, ang narinig ko sa aking mga IT ka batch at least gitutunan sila ng basic HTML, CSS. Kung wala ka natutunan yan sa high school, they will definitely teach it to you in that course. Although, ang mas focused ang industry to CS people, pero ang IT meron pa rin, definitely more so than us. So mas advantage si IT over us computer engineers when it comes to this industry. So tayo, we have a strong programming, not a strong programming na background. I can say na natay kana atong edge over the IT people. But aside from that, when it comes to the industry, they are more closely connected. Kay awag ko ng CS division, di ba, na sila yung mga talks, na sila mga tao. Ang lain ngayon na employee dira sa CS kay, web devs themselves, which will easily translate sa ilang mga students. Not only in ADO, even in USEP, mas ang CSIT nila, mas nako dyan ang advantage. So for us, dili ko sure if sarcastic ni si Hill or dili, pero yes, for me it makes sense. Weak coding, strong programming. Basta, ano ko sabihin to? Basta, well, gitrain naman juta ni Sir Dex. So we have that going for us. But when it comes to the industry, knowledge about the industry, tech stack experience, mas na dun sila edge. Pero that, of course, that will not stop us from breaking through the industry. Dagan man mga unsa. Yes, definitely. Mauna akong giingon ganina na kanang mga data structures and algorithms ninyo na class, for those who have experience now or went through data structures and algorithms, also for those who have not, wala pa jud ko nakagamit og binary search tree when developing a website or Dijkstra's algorithm. Pero siguro sure for back-end people na pag-optimize sa performance sa inyong API or pag-query sa database, whatever. Pero in my experience generally, dili nimo need. O kana o. So, yan ang shortest path, yes. Yan ang actually aking project nung data structures and algorithms. Never used it. Not once. Sa aking experience. So, don't be discouraged. Everyone can learn. Everyone can try. You can definitely succeed. You can definitely break through the industry. Not to say na uses ang ginatudlo sa ato Foundation gyapon siya. Strong foundation gyapon siya to code. And most of the time din, na-forgot ako to mention, in firms, usually, they will test you either through, in an interview, either through a written test or kanang on-the-spot coding. So, pero nagyapon ko yung naga-disagree na sentiment dira because most of the time, the questions they will ask you, you won't use it during web development. In my experience, don't take it with a grain of salt kasi junior gyapon ko. But sa aking experience, they will use those kinds of questions to test kung unsa ka nakahawd or kabalo pa mag-code. Even if you don't need it sa job. Kana. Any other questions? Stop over here. Pa ba? May concerns? Queries? I'm going to assume na wala na. So, thank you for listening to me, guys. Medyo taas-taas to na talk, pero thank you for bearing with us. So, good luck with you in the future if you ever do so. If you ever decide to pursue this line of this field, in this line of work, it's a nice nice siya na line of work. Dako yung future ani, it's stable. Nga po siya. Yun lang. Thank you, guys. If you want more elegant example ng tawag nito, elegant example of a single page application made purely on React, made by yours truly, pwede kayo mag-visit dito na link, ilagay ko lang sa chat. Aside from that, thank you very much.
Last question ko
Sige, go.
Bakit anong reason bakit like you should use Linux compared to Windows? when it comes to development. Like, why should we use Linux, bro? Why is Linux always being used when it comes to
Okay.
development?
Most likely si Hill ang makatubag ana kay dili ko kabalo jud sa reason ana, but yes, if mapansin nimo, most developers use either Linux or Mac OS ang mag-develop. Murag mas paspas lang jud siya. Mo lang ginaingon. Mas
Oh,
paspas lang jud siya.
usually sa Windows kay kung nakakailangan i-install na package, you have to meddle with yung system environment pa na variables. Kailangan mo pa i-set up yan sa kung tahay sa C++ kasi ang issue niyan is kailangan mo pa i-set up na if your command line wants to use the compiler, kailangan mo pa i-set up yung variable mismo dun sa yung system environment variable. Good. Alam mo yung path equals blah blah blah. So yun, medyo iffy siya. Tapos VS Code, hindi pa mabasa ng VS Code. So kailangan pa din i-set up yan. Whereas kung Linux ka, install mo lang and it magically works. And actually, most of the developments masking not really not really just purely strictly sa web development na industry, masking kaning computer vision na industry or graphics or kung o back-end pa man, really ang like a lot of the hardware is being run on Linux. Pati servers, most of the servers sa internet kay ginagamit Linux. Murag ano siya, murag really something to ano siya mostly ano yun? It is what it is, yun. You can't really change it if you are comfortable with Windows 10. Unfortunately, most of the developers think otherwise and just have to go with the flow para hindi ka din mahirapan. Anyways, yun naga-change up naga-change up naman din yung landscape very differently. Before, you had to restart your computer para lang maglipat sa Linux. You have to literally, kung sa amin, me, just to practice programming, I have to literally restart my PC para mag-Linux ako. Nowadays, it's easier. What you mentioned, dual boot. But it's in virtual machine, pero dual boot is generally making your setup just like run exactly like Linux, walang overhead, walang mabagal, hindi mabug down. Yun, medyo buggy siya, medyo mahina siya. Pero if you do a dual boot, yun, medyo mabilis. Pero yun nga, mabagal siya kasi kailangan mo pa mag-restart. Kung gusto mo na maglaro or gusto mo na mag-do with something that's in a Windows environment, you have to restart again to restart the whole process. And then it's not necessarily so cross-platform. Yan.
Pero kuya, regarding sa sabi mo na it's much faster, like for example, let's say mag-compile ako ng code sa Windows, let's say it takes 10 seconds. Like noticeable ba speed? Let's say mag-compile ako ng same code sa Linux, ayun, 5 seconds na lang. Ganun.
Not in the sense na speed, but in the sense na tawag yan, efficiency or rather kaning wala siya quirks na kailangan mo bantayan, wala tae na nag-deprecated na yung code, kailangan mo i-change pod sa Windows. Medyo iffy gid ang Windows actually kay daghan mo siya bloatware and wala yung structure. Because generally basically Linux is very stable compared to Windows 10. Ang Windows 10 di ba kailangan mag-update, kailangan pa mag-restart. There are Linux servers na years on na naga-run, wala pa nag-restart just because it's very stable, walang memory leaks, walang problems sa underlying operating system niya. That's why developers like
and and to add to that, preferred would see macOS mag-develop. Ay Unix based po siya, so same siya sa Linux, and that's the only way reliably na maka-develop ka for iOS. Even if mag-React Native ka, kailangan yapon nimo og macOS para maka-develop ng iOS. So generally, if you're looking to invest na for programming na computer or kanang for your career, a Mac is a good buy. So Yun lang, just to add. O, kana lang. Ayun lang i-mention sa ang Apple. Kay, as you all may know, di ba, atong curriculum is heavily centered around .NET and C Sharp, which is Microsoft. So, very biased siya sa Microsoft. If wala ninyo napansin.
Pero may alternatives pa kuya, like do you really need to buy a Mac para makaroon ng Mac OS or pwede lang ba siya parang virtual machine?
Sa aking experience, I haven't tried a virtual machine. Pero the easiest way talaga kay macOS, may kailangan ka kasi na app to run and test and deploy your iOS applications, be it Swift or React Native, which is kailangan jud mo from the Mac Store. Dili ko kay wala po ko experience sa virtual machine. You can try that. But generally kailangan jud mo mag Mac. Pero kato wala pa nakatry og virtual machine, so maybe you can try that. Pero sa aking current work, nakasabot man sila. Ang app is in iOS pero wala mo ko'y Mac, so allow na lang ko na to work on the Android version. And ang perk din sa iOS ay sa macOS kaya you can work on both iOS and Android builds. So mo tong clear advantage.
Sige kuya, thank you.
Wala na lang na pangutana. Wala na ta, Boss Sil.
And so with that now, I think this this webinar is coming to a close. I would like to thank everybody na nandito pa rin. No? Anyways, we've probably closed kanina pa. May nag-alis naman din. So with this, we officially close our webinar. We thank you. We highly appreciate everybody else for staying, for trying to learn, especially not just on web development, pero din sa career din. I think there was a bit of good feedback, or rather parang welcome siguro ang people to discussing career options, especially sa ating field. So yun, with that, napabay final thoughts atong speakers.
Was.
So with that in mind, we thank you so much again. Just before we formally close this meeting, might I remind you guys na meron na naman tayong webinar with Carmela. Dito ba si Carms?
Yes.
Okay, Carmela will be having his webinar on Logisim sa Thursday. This is also in collaboration with ECE. So yun, kita-kits by then, guys. So on your own time, please, at the very least, try web dev if you find it a good career option. Yes, apil yapon tatanan, guys. Thank you for coming. You may now leave the meeting if you desire. Kung napang may questions, na may gapon ni si Waji dire. Or you can contact him anytime. He is, tawag ni? He's very much willing to